Lately, with being home more often than not, I find myself venturing off and checking out a movie that I wasn't planning on watching. The movie I came across was this movie called Pig, and it stars Nicolas Cage. If you haven't seen it before or haven't seen any trailers or anything or don't know anything about it, I say don't look into it. Don't look at any trailers or anything like that. If you're a person who like a slow burn, that's like a character study that does a slow reveal, that's about connections and things like that, it's a good movie to take a chance on. It's very different for Nicolas Cage, but I really enjoyed it. It really had heart, it really had journey, it really had insight on certain things, and is very unexpected in a lot of different ways. So if you just want a movie just to kind of chill to and just kind of have time to sit back and follow a journey of a person, I think this would be a cool one for you. All right, so that being said, this is the synopsis. A truffle hunter who lives in the Oregon wilderness must return to his past in Portland in search of his beloved pig after she's kidnapped. Now, this movie is directed by Michael Sarnowski. It stars Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff. And Alex Wolff, he's been in, I think, the new Jumanji movie with The Rock and stuff. So he's been in a lot of stuff lately. He was in the new M. Night Shyamalan movie, Old. So when you see him, he's definitely a familiar face, and he's really good getting out there doing his thing. So this movie was a trip. So even from the beginning, when it started, I couldn't tell what was going on with it. It was just, you see a guy out there in the wilderness, and you think, well, it's a homeless guy in the wilderness and doing whatever he's doing, searching for something. And when he calls out his pet, not a dog come out, but a pig. And then you find out eventually that the pig is helping him find something. You see that he's finding truffles. So it's like, okay. So you think like this dude he finds truffles or whatever. And he goes back and you see he's like a cook or something, and he's making this pie, and you could tell he's skilled at what he does. And it's just like, this doesn't fit the way he looks, It's just like, what's up with this dude? He's in the middle of nowhere in this cabin, and he's hunting for truffles, and he's making this elaborate dish. It's almost like this. He makes this dough for this crust that he's making, and he's chopping up, look like peppers and mushrooms, and he's sauteing them and stuff, and he's making this elegant dinner. I'm like, wow, So he's just cooking that for him and his pig. And then not too long after that, maybe the next day or so, you hear like this, music and like this car coming up, and it's just like some local kids driving up to the wilderness or something. What's going on with that? And you come to find out, the guy who came up with the car and all the noise coming up to his cabin is this guy who buys his truffles. So I guess he sells truffles to make money, and he lives out in the cabin, and the guy's asking questions like, hey man, nobody's gonna know if anything happens to you out here. You could be dead out here. Do you want a cell phone or something like that, or you want a portable shower? And it's funny because Nicolas Cage character, he was just kind of like, and the character name is Robin. He was just kind of like, he just closed the door in the guy's face, because it's just like, he ain't trying to hear it. Like, I'm the way I want to be because that's the way I want to be. So he goes on about his business, and he's just kind of relaxing, and he just stays to himself. And then one night, the pig wakes up and hears somebody at the door, and he's like, it's just the wolves and the coyotes and stuff, because you're in the middle of nowhere, and you're hearing something, but that's, it can't be anything. And then next thing you know, somebody's kicking in the door, and they stole his pig, and it kind of knocked him out. And then he woke up the next day, and he went on his mission to see if he could find his pig. And he goes into town, and he looks for help, and he needs a phone. He goes to his local diner, and a person he ended up asking for was dead for like 10 years. So he hasn't been around for a cool while. And he asks, can he use the phone? He uses the phone. And who does he call? He calls the kid that he sells the truffles to. And he's like, somebody stole my pig. I need to find my pig. And the kid's kind of like, well, it's kind of not my problem, but we'll see what we could do. And just kind of go through all this stuff. So he's going to like, He goes to get the guy to kind of take him to the different places where people go and sell trade truffles and stuff. And they come across this woman, and it's like, hey, my pig got stolen. And they knew that, like, the main character Robin noticed the kind of vehicle that the people who jacked them had, and he went to go find them. And the woman, who's like a truffle broker, she's like she's kind of like in the middle of the woods too, and people go there to find stuff, and they sell them to her, and then she sells it to the buyers and whatnot. So it's a whole little underworld for, I guess, selling truffles and stuff. So they kind of find the people who robbed them, and the people who robbed them were some tweakers, and they couldn't remember exactly who they sold the pig to, and he just like, I just want my pig. And so it goes on this wild goose chase to go find this pig. And it's just, the story just very quickly goes from a hermit in the middle of the woods to, this journey of finding this pig. And all the stuff he was going through and the people he was meeting and stuff. And you don't really know nothing about him, but as it goes on, just more stuff unfolds. And it's just kind of like, some of it's outlandish, but, could be possible. And then some other stuff is just like, kind of tragic and beautiful, but it's neat because you learn so much about him, but you don't learn it from him. You learn it from the people that they come across or interact with and things like that, or even how people react to his presence, or even his name. Yeah. And I guess I get into like spoiler territory, but some of the things I really thought that was really beautiful about this is like scenes where he came across a person who used to work for him in his restaurant. And it's funny because the kid thought he was taking him places because he was like, I want to go to this fancy restaurant. The kid's kind of wondering why. And he's like, just get me in there. And the kid got to pull some strings because he has some connections because he sells some truffles and stuff to restaurants. And he gets into this restaurant and he's thinking like he's running things and he's the one that's making things happen. And they order some food from this fancy restaurant, and and the kid sees the food. It's like this modern kind of, frozen fruit and meat and blah, 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 with the smoke and the moss and the whatever. And obviously Nicolas Cage's character is not impressed by it at all. And they told the kid, like, yeah, we need to speak to the chef. So the chef comes out all happy and proud of what he did and stuff. And it was just this interesting conversation that they had. And at first the chef didn't realize who he was. But when he realized who he was, and we're just kind of finding out as the movie unfolds, and this guy's just like tripping off. I'm like, yeah, where you been? You've been gone for 10 years, I always respected you. And he's like, so are you proud of this food that you made or whatever? And he's like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, and the guy said, I worked at such and such a restaurant. He said, yeah, you worked there for 2 months. And the guy's like, what do you mean 2 months? He said, yeah, you worked there for 2 months and I fired you for overcooking the pasta, and so the guy's kind of thrown off and he was still trying to save face and he's still talking. And he kind of broke the dude down because he's kind of like, hey, man, when you was leaving and I asked you, what do you want to do? When I let you go, what do you want to do? And you said, you just want like you just want this little pub. And he said, how come you didn't do that? And he was just making all these excuses. Well, it's a bad investment and people don't really want a pub and stuff. And he said, what was that dish you said you wanted to make at that pub? And the guy remembered exactly the dish he wanted to make. And he said, what are you doing? He said, I just want to let you know. He said, well, this is popular and my restaurant's doing well. And he said, but this isn't you. He's like, none of this stuff is real. He was like, the critics who's talking about your restaurant isn't real. The people eating this food and stuff isn't real. You aren't real. And you know why? And he said, because this dish you made is not real. And that was just so powerful. I keep coming across this, especially lately in the past few days, this whole thing coming up with, if you're not revealing yourself, nobody can really know you, and nobody can really know you. They can't really connect to you or love you in the way you should be because you are not giving them who you are. You're showing and giving a representative. So on one hand, it's hard for you to keep up with that On the other hand, it's hard for somebody to connect on the outside of that. So it was just powerful the way he said it. It made the guy break down because he knew the truth. You know, we live in fear and you think you get some kind of success from it, but the success is not true because it's not what you wanted to do or who you are. It was just powerful. Unexpected. Actually, the reason why they went to that guy in the first place, because they're trying to find out who took his pig. Because the truffles are very rare and blah, blah, blah. And so there's only so many people that would be needing that kind of thing. And they reveal who the guy was who took the truffles. Kind of find out the guy who took the pig was the guy who's driving around helping them out and stuff, trying to find. It was the guy's father. And I'm thinking like, when they said that pig was missing, to be honest, I thought that it was the kid that took the pig in the first place because just the way the whole beginning, kind of went down with him making a comment about the pig and all this other kind of stuff. So it was a trip that I figured it had to be him or somebody connected to him, but it was his father. Nicolas Cage character was upset and pissed and everything, and he's like, "Tell me where your father lives." And he said, "Man, I didn't know. I didn't tell him anything." He said, "Tell me where your father is." And he'll give him the address. So Nicolas Cage went to go see the father. And he's this big rich guy, and they have a confrontation, and everybody respects this dude. So they couldn't find out this guy's this big time chef and all this other kind of stuff, and he just disappeared. And the guy respected him, but he was saying like, the reason why he took the pig is because his son was finding success and selling the truffles and stuff, and he was trying to keep his son out of the whole business. He said he was kind of surprised that his son did as well as he did, but that whole world was just too much for him, and he'll find him a desk job. So he's basically trying to get rid of the pig, which you get rid of the source of partly the source of his son's success. And he figured if you get rid of that, the son would kind of go away, have to come back to him, and he'll just kind of break him down and just put him in a chair behind a desk somewhere. So it was just so crazy. But it was interesting when the son because before they even was going out to kind of really go try to track the pig down, the son and Nicolas Cage character was sitting down having a conversation because the son had made him breakfast, so I can't cook well, but, he's talking about his family and his mom and dad, and he was saying like, hey, my mom and dad would have date nights and stuff, and they would come back, drunk and mad and stuff. He said this one night they went to this restaurant and they came back happy, and they was raving about this dish and this food and blah, blah, blah. And he was saying like, this is the same restaurant that you want me to go to. And yeah, he thought that was kind of interesting because that's the last time he saw his mom and dad kind of happy. So when Nicolas Cage went to go see the father, and the father was like, I'm not giving you that pig back. He's like, well, I'll give you some money, but if you ever come back here, I will kind of pretty much just ruin you. But I'll give you some money for the pig, but you're not getting the pig back. Nicolas Cage isn't trying to have it. He leaves. You see that the guy's son is out there, and he's like, hey, I didn't mean to tell him. I didn't know. Because the kid was probably just talking to his dad, just being proud of what he's doing, trying to impress his dad. And his dad had these alternative motives to try to, mess him up. And you would think somebody would be supportive and stuff, but that's you just never know. Because sometimes you're trying to do something to better yourself, to prove yourself to someone. And someone, if they're not open to seeing that, they're not going to see it. And sometimes it goes to the point of even trying to dismantle what you're doing so you won't be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So it's just very interesting with the father and son kind of thing and just different stuff. But yeah. And so when the son is outside of the dad's house and Nicolas Cage go walking down, it's like, hey, and you got a plan, but you just can't figure out, like, so what is he going to do? Is he going to burn the house down? Or is he going to try to figure out a way to find that pig and kidnap him back? Or what? You tell the kid, hey, I'm writing down some stuff. I need you to take care of this. I'm going to take care of that. I need you to drop me off somewhere. I need you to get this stuff on this list. And so he got this kid on this mission. It was beautiful because it was, when the kid said, like, I don't know what so this stuff you want me to get? He's like, yeah, this stuff you want me to get. And he's like, well, they're not going to, how am I going to get in? They're not going to let me in. They're not going to, he's like, give him my name. And the kid was like, I could use your name? And Nicolas Cage was like, yeah, use my name. And the kid looked so proud and so happy and so touched that somebody that he saw everybody had respect for, right? So before he just thought he was like a bum, basically. So he didn't know. But when we started seeing the respect that he's getting from all these different places and how people were treating him and stuff, it just let him know that who he was in the presence of. And so this kid that was like this hotshot kid has this nice sports car and dressed nice and all this kind of stuff. Nicolas Cage saw him when he first saw him and broke him down talking about, you so worried about your vibe and how people see you. He's like, do you like that car you driving? Do you like that shirt you're wearing? And you care about what people say and you wearing that kind of stuff and you driving that? You know, it kind of just broke the kid in a way where this movie had a lot of stuff where people just had all these airs and they just necessarily wasn't what you thought they were. So the kid, you thought he was one thing, you know, pretentious and all this other kind of stuff, but he was just a hurt kid from his dad. And you saw this guy that you thought was a bum, and he was somebody who got tired of the real world, saw a lot of things, and he was very truthful, upfront, and honest. And probably the world wasn't ready, or at least that part of the world, as far as like, you know, that whole thing with the, you know, snooty, you know, restaurants and the chefs and that whole world of, you know, and he probably just was done with it. Like he knew the truth of it and was just done with it. And even though it was great, he probably was just figuring like, I don't feel it anymore. You know, the way everything is getting popularized or turned to all this other kind of frou-frou stuff was not art to him anymore. So instead of doing art in a way that wasn't fulfilling to him, he'd rather just step out of it. And I thought that was beautiful. I think that's powerful. I think it's strong. In some ways, I think I did that. You know, it's like if you ain't feeling good doing it, don't do it. Or find a way to do it where it feels good to you again. So I thought it was very neat, very beautiful lesson. But yeah, what I was saying about the guy saying he could use his name, it just was a beautiful moment because he was touched. It made me think like, he probably think like he can't even use his father's name. You know, like his dad won't even let him go into restaurants where he sells stuff to because, you know, that's his like territory or whatnot. So he's just trying to do something to prove himself to you know, almost so he could matter to his dad. His dad doesn't care, but he's just fighting and trying to be something with him. And the dad, you know, probably wouldn't even let him use his name for anything. And this guy who's this icon and you know, with cooking and being a chef and all this other kind of stuff, you know, says use my name. Use my name, you know? It was beautiful. It was powerful. So this mission is going on. He's picking up all this stuff, but it's interesting because he's going to this place. It's like a funeral home. And he used the guy's name to get in. The woman who opens the door takes him to this wine cellar, picks out this wine. He's like, why is this wine here? And you try to figure out what is she to that guy, to Robin. And, you know, somehow she's connected to him. You know, finds out that his wife died. And then you had also Robin going to this little cafe or something like that. And he's there. And he's talking to the owner. And he's saying stuff. And you come to find out he owned that restaurant. And he said, you changed it. And you could tell that she's probably nervous. But she said, all this time that passed and you never came back. So I didn't know. So, you know, I baked, so I changed it to a bakery. So I'm assuming it used to be a restaurant. And then you kind of find out it was a restaurant that he used to own with his wife. He asked her, like, do you still make this baguette with salted baguette? She was like, yeah. He said, same recipe? She's like, yeah. And that's all he wanted. He didn't want the place back. He didn't want anything from her. And it was like a baguette. Gave him the baguette. And she had these shortbread cookie things. And he's like, can I get another one? You know, to go with it. And she just seemed so happy. Just like slid him over the tray. Like, take what you want. And he got it and was about to walk out. And she's like, something, he said. And she just kind of, you know how, you know, she's like, yes, chef. And she kind of stood with her arms behind her back, you know, out of respect for him. And she just kind of grabbed him, tried to give him a hug. And, you know, he wasn't really hugging her back. But he seemed like he was glad for her that she was doing what she wanted to do. And he was walking out. And he said, you removed the curtains? And she said, your wife never liked them. And then he said, yeah, I think it looks better like this. You know, so it was just beautiful. But all these places and things he came across and just his influence on it, it was just neat. It was just so nice to see a story where you learn about a character, but also somebody just obviously telling you, or it's written down on something, or just, just laying out the plot or whatever. It was just nice. It was just nice. So you see him and the guy, the guy got his stuff. Nicolas Cage got his stuff, and he's headed over back somewhere, and they go into this house or this kitchen. I'm thinking like, who house is this? I'm thinking like, well, maybe it's his house. Maybe it's his house. I don't know. Maybe living in a cabin, out in the wilderness, but he still also has a nice house or whatnot. So he's up there cooking with the kid, and he's showing the kid how to cook. They get done cooking, and you find out it's the kid's father's house. So the kid goes to see the father and like, I cooked you something. And the dad's kind of ignoring him. Like, I cooked you something. Come on out. And he came on out. And so it's the boy sitting down, the father, and Nicolas Cage. He's cooking, and he's bringing out the food and serving the food. It's just like, so he's serving the food. Okay. Nicolas Cage shows the father the bottle of wine. He says, your son, chose this wine. And, the son just looking like, like this guy that I know my dad respects too, sees this wine and thinks, it's a good choice. Now that the guy told my dad it was me who chose it, does he still think it was good? Do he still respect it? So it was interesting to kind of see the kid looking just to kind of see what the response was. So I thought it was really powerful. So he served everybody and then sat down. And then the dad's eating the food. First he didn't eat the food. He's kind of waiting because he's like, this dude trying to poison me or whatnot. And you see Nicolas Cage is like, go ahead and eat. So Nicolas Cage just start eating and stuff. And then the dad started kind of eating. And he just kind of takes a bite and eats and just like falls back in his chair like a familiar smell or familiar song. How it just makes you time travel. That's how that moment was. And then he drank some wine. He just sat back and he just started kind of breaking. He started just kind of crying. It's like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? He had to leave the room. It was crazy because really, Nicolas Cage's character ratatouille'd his ass. In that movie Ratatouille, when that guy ate that dish, and it just took him back in a time warp and took him back to a kid and just like brought a tear to his eye because it was just so powerful, that connection of a good time. And it was that meal. He had his son cook the meal that he described to Nicolas Cage that one time when his mom and dad went to this restaurant, talked about this meal forever, and the chef ended up disappearing. That he made that meal, and he had his son help cook that meal, which must have been something special to his son too, because he knew of the meal because of how it made his family, how it made his parents feel. Like, a parents that normally argue and don't get along, they were happy that night because of that meal. That powerful. And so the dad had to walk away, and then Nicolas Cage followed him and just like, hey, I want my pig. And the guy was still like reluctant to tell him, but he was just like, when I hired those people to take that pig, they were rough with him and, rough with her. And she didn't survive. And he was like kind of bawling when he told him the truth about it. And Nicolas Cage just fell to the ground, because it's just like that whole thing. It's just like, man, like his pet, his friend was gone, and it's just broken. And then it kind of cut away to a scene where the son and Nicolas Cage was like, he's going to take him back. And he takes him back, and he stop off at this little cafe to get a little bite or whatnot. And he's like, man, before we're on this journey, I don't know, if I would just stayed home, I wouldn't have known she would have been alive. But then the boy said a profound truth, but she wouldn't have been. So it's that whole thing where he's just kind of fighting, well, what's more important, knowing the truth or not knowing and believing something that may or may not be true? Like, what's more important to you? So I thought it was an interesting moment, Interesting moment. Very interesting. So they get in at the cafe. Nicolas Cage said he's thinking about just walking back from there. And the guy was like, are you all right? And he was like, yeah. And the guy asked him again, are you all right? He's like, yeah. And so Nicolas Cage just kind of walks off. And so the kid gets into his car, if I didn't mention before, he got this nice sports car. When he goes in the car and before he says goodbye, he's like, well, I'll see you Thursday. Because Thursday was the day that he would come pick up the truffles from Nicolas Cage. And also, a thing I forgot to say, which I thought was pretty neat too. Now, even though there's, you have the pig that sniffs out the truffles to find the truffles, Nicolas Cage mentions that I don't even need the pig to find the truffles. I have a way of finding the truffles myself. And he was like saying, so why'd you even go through all this? And he's like, because, I loved her. I loved her. So it was tragic that the pig died, but it was also beautiful and interesting. I thought it was so cool when he said, I'll see you on Thursday. Like when the kid goes, to pick up his truffles from Nicolas Cage's character. So it was almost kind of like the kid, he still have a chance to still be successful and do his thing and work his way up. Like even though his dad tried to mess him up, it still didn't stop him. He was still going to get his truffle. He's still going to be successful and do his thing. But then he, Nicolas Cage walks away and the boy goes into his car. He thinks he's going to drive off. At first I thought, well, maybe he's going to pick him up and drive him anyway or whatnot. But he ended up just kind of sitting there for a moment. He started kind of tearing up and he let his seat back and just kind of sat there, kind of curled up and just kind of cried. And I thought that was powerful too. And I'm wondering, is that because, this guy really looks out for him and cares for him like a dad and his actual dad doesn't? Or that the fact that he thought that his edge and his hustle that he had going was going to be ended and found out it wasn't. It's going to continue. Because when the dude said, hey, I'll see you on Thursday, hey, it's back to normal like they were doing. So it's kind of hard to tell if it was just one thing or a whole bunch of other things. But it was a powerful moment. And then it kind of ends with Nicolas Cage going back to his cabin, and he's playing this tape that had his wife singing to him. Yeah, and it just kind of ends with him just being in his cabin listening to this tape. Just kind of a quiet ending. It was just interesting. I would have never had thought that this movie would have been all that it was. I don't know. Maybe the trailer would have told me too much or showed me too much. Actually, I'm going to watch the trailer after I get done with this just to see what was in there. But I like movies that I enjoyed that I didn't see a trailer on. That way I'll just be lost in the journey. Because I tell you, I honestly didn't know what to expect. And it was definitely, everything's unfolding as it went. Like I said, it went from a homeless looking dude to a truffle farmer to somebody breaking and stealing this pig. I'm like, where's this thing going? Him being able to cook these elaborate dishes. I'm like, what is all of this? So, hopefully you've seen the movie. Those are my thoughts on the movies. Those are the things that stuck out to me that I really appreciated. If you're the type of person who didn't mind spoilers and just listened to this, even though I would prefer you to had watched it without listening to this first, I hope that if you have not seen it, I hope that this encourage you to at least check it out if you think it's the kind of film that you would enjoy. Like I said, slow burn, but not a slow burn. It's considered a drama/thriller. It's definitely different for Nicolas Cage, but like I said, it had a lot of heart. I like how the story developed and unfolded. I liked how everybody kind of mattered to each other in a weird kind of way, how things are connected in a weird kind of way. Circles are small. You can't take for granted who you think somebody is, because you don't know. It's a commentary on the mask that people wear. Everything's not what it seems. And if you adhere to the game, then everything looks like a game piece. And sometimes you have to be away from it if it no longer feeds you or feel you're a part of it. Sometimes you are rejected from it or you just take yourself out of it. It's very interesting. Very interesting. I would highly recommend it. Once again, this is my thoughts and breakdown and talk about of Nicolas Cage's newest movie, simply titled Pig. Till next time.